was trying to group these into categories like maybe utility, incentive to buy, disincentive to sell, incentive to lock up for one coin to get another. A lot of the DEX stuff and stuff like that too. Are there different pieces that feel more like, I guess less risky versus more risky? And there's a whole bunch of, that's why I'm trying to like break this down into, there's like 5 different ways we can go with this. Okay, like depending on, like you mentioned too, about how much you have to put in it, how much you're willing to risk, what your time horizon is. Are you able to get enough out of it in your time horizon that makes it worth it to even do it? But I guess over those few things, like maybe you could compare it to like ICOSA, Hedron, that type of ecosystem with like the PH ecosystem. Maybe that would be like a useful comparison to be like, okay, what are you actually doing when you participate in this, and how does that, what does the difference look like?
Yeah. So yeah, the two are obviously very different. The yield in Hedron and ICOSA are inflationary in nature, where if you have hex stakes, you mint Hedron, you stake your Hedron ICOSA, you're earning ICOSA, which is inflationary based on the amount of Hedron being burned. And so that is actually lower on the risk curve than like some of the PH stuff, because the only thing you're exposed to at that point is market volatility and I guess locking your coins up too, right? And so like kind of the baseline risk we all take by being in crypto is market volatility, which is a considerable risk. But if it's the same risk across every single strategy or every single type of position, then like that risk doesn't matter when you're comparing risk across assets. Right. So it's like we're exposed to the price of Hedron and ICOSA, which has been a bad thing lately because those coins have not done very well in all of this since PulseChain is launched. But the risk in terms of how to obtain the yield is very low because they're single-sided staking positions. So you're just staking the coins. You're literally putting up stake in the system saying, I'm not going to sell my coins. So the system rewards you with tokens because of that. And what the bet for Hedron and ICOSA is also the same as Hex, which is T-share exposure. So these are just the value of Hedron and ICOSA is derived from the T-share, which means that when you own these tokens, you have exposure to the T-share, except it's just more downstream exposure. Hex is having a T-share is the most direct exposure you can have to a T-share. Liquid Hex is the next because you can exchange Hex directly for T-shares. Then it's Hedron because you can theoretically exchange Hedron for T-shares itself on the liquidation market, and its distribution model is based on the T-share. And then ICOSA is another level abstracted from there because it only comes into existence when T-shares are gone through the liquidation auction or Hedron is burned. So they both are tied to the T-share. It's just the level of difference. The distance that they have to that core value prop of the T-share is different. So Hedron is closer to that value. ICOSA is further away from that value. So Hedron is a less risky bet than ICOSA is from that perspective.
What is Hedron and ICOSA? What are the incentives? Like what are I guess what are they trying to get you to do?
I guess hold the token, participate in the protocol. Help you get cheaper T-shares theoretically through the liquidation auctions. That's pretty much it. They're tickers and coins that a community can form around, and really what they do, in my opinion, is allow people to get more exposure to T-shares than they could get directly through Hex, because a 1.2 billion Hedron, which is about a squid position, it's about like $300, maybe $200. Versus a squid position in Hex, which is probably a couple $1,000 still at this point. And so it allows people to get that T-share exposure that they weren't able to get because they're not as early to Hex, or they don't want to lock up their coins for as long. It allows them to get that today, just in a more abstracted form.
And what does it incentivize to win in Hedron ICOSA ecosystem? What are the plays that are most rewarding for him?
Mm-hmm. So right now, actually staking in this Alex Hedron Maxi pool is pretty rewarding because it's paying a 50% APR, which is higher than the native staking. So if you have some Hedron and you want to chuck it in here, you can de-risk your position a little bit because it sells some of it into Hex. But also you can earn more APR by holding those tokens than by staking it natively. And then the incentives for staking it natively is keeping 100% asset exposure while compounding your coins slowly over time.
Yeah, I was just trying to get in the mind of, especially when Alex is making this stuff. I mean, there's a ton of just really complex pieces that fit together to actually make it work. And, we got V2 coming at some point as well. And I'm just always wondering, like, this type of game, that when people choose to play it, the difference between that versus all the, you mentioned meme coins before, we're going to talk about, the PH ecosystem in a second, but it's just the ability to see the similarities and differences and be like, okay, this is going to be more profitable for me in my personal situation, the amount of coins I want to give up, the amount of risk I want to take on, the time horizon I want to sit through this, the cycles and all this stuff, versus not. So that's why I'm trying to get into the description of these so much. But yeah, you're killing it on that.